But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.
All right, everybody, welcome to 36th episode of World Blockchain Roundtable. Hosts for today are Greg from Rivet, Dave from Den.social, Satoshi Sean, entrepreneur and friend of all, and I'm Joe, architect, founder of Dragonchain. Quick update on the distribution from last week's episode. Each host will receive 133 lot, each topic contributor 33 lot. Ownership tokens. These lot come with perpetual passive income from the channel, free edits, and governance votes. Speaking of which, the themes for last, I guess the last governance vote to choose the themes for February, NFT utility won, so that'll be the first week of February. Interoperability came in second, mining third, and a deep dive into layer ones came in fourth. So that'll be all the topics for February, which is pretty cool. Some pretty good ones. And we also have, if you go to the GI, there is a new GI just from this morning where we are going to add a reward for the person who proposed the chosen theme for the week. So in February, this will be the first, I guess, if this passes in time. As soon as this passes, the shows in February will start rewarding the people that have provided or proposed each of those topics. So that's all happening. There's also new merch in the Dragonchain store for the WBRT show. So go there and get some merch. It's pretty cool stuff. Anyway, the theme for this week is journalism. It's the last week of January, last chosen. So let's go over, I guess, current events and speculation around anything current going on in journalism. Those were the two things that we have for segments. So what do you guys have this week?
I would say that broadly, if you just look at the media landscape, it looks like journalism is starting to have to introspect a little bit on the broader narrative. I think it's starting to crumble around some of the things that were sacrosanct and undiscussable, and they're having to backpedal quite a bit right now. You see some media outlets actually showing contriteness for not being more objective and adversarial to power, and I think that's probably the biggest ongoing, but starting to move more quickly change over the course of last week.
It is interesting timing for this episode, isn't it? Like, there's a lot going on in that category with, with like Spotify and with Assange and with like lots of examples of. Spotify might not be the first thing you think of when you think journalism, but it's very related. This is a podcast host who's really like battling one of the, I don't even know how to describe it except for it's one of the larger debates that you hear about right now is the Spotify versus Joe Rogan or the Assange versus whatever that's versus, things like that.
Right. Interesting conspiracy theory about the Neil Young thing, because he's previously been pretty supportive of live and let live, respect each other's views, have more dialogue type of mindset. And he's getting kind of old. maybe somebody is managing him in a way that is not really approved by him. And I think there's some interestingness around that. I don't think there's any proof out there for it, but this does seem out of character for him.
It is interesting thought, man. It is interesting thought that I had not, because he's ancient. I mean, he was around. He's like, 60s kind of star. That's a definite possibility. You've kind of thrown me there. I was gonna say, all I know is a Southern man don't need him around anyhow.
And I thought he was always kind of against the certain politics, and I don't know if he was ever owned, but I don't know. His music sucks, so I just attributed it to him just being a worthless artist. But so I think it all matches up myself.
Well, he made an entire record that was sort of overtly anti-GMO, and he'd previously given a lot of voice and platform to RFK. So like, he's not exactly in the camp that says, listen to authority, it knows what's best for you.
Yeah, it was that one song where he was walking around like a homeless guy, pushing a cart, talking about the government sucks and everything. That was very not this.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting point, and I wanted to make the point that Dave did, that journalism has shifted, and that, to tie in with Greg's point, that legacy journalism has lost, and I think now when we're talking about you're saying the resurgence of it or introspective, they're just admitting they've lost. That's what they're really doing. Like, okay, fine, we tried, we failed. Now they're scrambling to kind of hold on to what relevance they have, because you can't argue with those numbers. You can't argue with the power that alternative media, has. And I remember there's one that asshole from CNN, Acosta.
Which one?
Well, this was years ago, pre crazy world, and this guy was this YouTuber, alternative media, not that many followers, but he was following Acosta. He was asking him questions, and Acosta was making fun of him. It's like, oh, what channel are you with? Who are you with? It's like, I'm, blah, blah. And he's whatever his channel was. He's like, oh, you make those videos from your mom's kitchen table there? Do you? They're your chief? He was belittling this reporter so bad, making fun of him like crazy. And then when the lockdowns happened and I saw him at home, I was dying laughing just from that, remembering that. But now, they're having to admit that guy, like Tim Pool, he's gets way more views than any of them. And he's not Rogan or anything. I think Rogan gets like 30 times what Fox gets, and Fox gets like 10 times what CNN gets.
He's eating their lunch.
Yeah, you can't, and it's not a fluke. Once it's been going on for, a year, it's not a fluke anymore. It's not the ivermectin thing or something that was sensationalized. It's he's legitimately kicking their ass all the time.
Well,
so I think they're seeing that the landscape is changing, and that they don't have control of the narrative anymore.
Right.
Do you think
that all started though when with the stuff in the 90s where Drudge would print stuff that the mainline press wouldn't, even in the early days of the common use of the internet, and that changed a lot of stuff. And now, I mean, I think everybody has to think that pretty much all of the major media outlets are owned. That that Fox is probably controlled by the same people, but it is the controlled opposition to what the main media is supposed to be putting out. And it's pretty obvious because they all repeat the exact same thing. It's all equivalent to yellow journalism right now. They want war, whether it's in Taiwan or whether it's in the Ukraine. They want war. And they're obviously pushing heavily for Russian war. But
right. Well,
I can't remember the last time I watched the news. I don't know if you guys remember the news, there was a dude that would go on TV and he would say, "Hey, this happened." And now everything is, "Hey, let me tell you how I feel about what happened." Blah blah blah. That happened. It's not.
Yeah.
It used to just be, "This happened." That's it.
Well,
That's-
I don't know
that's-
about that. I even think even in the late '80s, the difference between watching CNN, before Fox wasn't around, I would watch CNN or I'd watch C-SPAN. And if you could watch C-SPAN, you could see what actually happened, what they actually said. Whereas if you're watching CNN, what this means, what he means when he says whatever, right? They wouldn't actually show you the speech. They would tell you what it means, and that was always annoying to me anyway.
Beginning of CNN, dude, they were walking on eggshells because people were like, "A privately owned corporate media? What?" And they're like, "No, man, we're gonna be really cool. We're like not about money at all. No. We're gonna like just tell the news, but just all day long." They were still legit until the early '90s. News was still news until the very early '90s, and then once Desert Storm happened, and people were glued to the TV, watching the news 10 hours a day, instead of music in the background, you had that going on in the background. That changed things, and it was obvious how much money they could make.
Right.
And-
Well,
What I
And
thought
the
was a good
internet seemed to reverse
commentary
that
on
for a
that
while.
was Anchorman 2. Have you seen Anchorman, the second one? They specifically talk about. I say talk about. It's a, it's a silly comedy, but
Right, the car chase.
But they're talking about. Well, the whole premise is this absurd
Yeah.
idea of a 24-hour news channel,
Yeah.
and it's a direct discussion about CNN and the merits of that and whether it is meaningful or not. And what I think.
And then they
about a
didn't
lot
want them to do a
also-
story or talk bad about something. And she was like, "What are you talking about? It's the news." They're like, "Well, yeah, but they're partially
Right.
owners in this," and she was. It was that was a huge thing. I thought that was a really big deal about that movie, especially back then.
I don't know if there's been a shift, not necessarily in journalism, but in what people want when they're watching something. Are you getting information? Are you getting a dopamine hit? Are you getting affirmation of something that you assume? And maybe this is really part of the free market
Well, I think
that has been attempted to be taken advantage of, which has
Well,
turned big news agencies into dopamine distribution instead of and money machines instead of information. Like, what is journalism? Are we having the discussion of what even is journalism?
Yeah.
well, and I think that discussion was kind of had for us, right? Like, I don't know if you guys remember, sort of some of the early part of the 2010s, right? Like you had some really big stories break that did not flatter the people in power very much. Like, aside from Snowden, you had things like Operation Fast and Furious that Cheryl Atkinson broke, where it was like, they tried to manufacture all of these traceable guns so they could send them to Mexican drug cartels and catch the bad guys by tracing the guns down. And as it turns out, the people who were responsible for doing the tracking lost track, so they just sent a bunch of guns to Mexican drug cartels. And Cheryl Atkinson broke that story. This sort of precipitated a response from the Obama administration that was very press suppressive, right? It ultimately may have been the earliest identifiable strain of this push to encourage people to not want real journalism, to recognize it not as a good thing, but as a threat to national security, and sort of to push a narrative that good people want to be told the truth from the government, and they want their reporters to do that, as opposed to investigative journalism that pushes hard on facts and challenges narratives.
And there are those people. There are crazy, weird sheep. With the Neil Young thing, 90% of the stuff. And then I think, maybe the world is 50-50. Maybe there are so many more people that are sheep and just, are that weird. Just tell me what I want to hear and just tell me, I'll believe it. Because everything, like 90% of the stuff on my feed, 90% of the stuff that I see online are people about Neil Young. It's all screw him. Blah blah blah. Look at him. Just whatever. Kissing up to the government, being controlled. And then it was on Cake, their page. They posted about it, and everybody in there was good for him. Yeah, that Rogan guy, he's crazy. I mean, they're just lapping it up, man. And then I was like, what? It is stuff they were saying, and I know, now I know that some of those are bots, but still, there were so many just regular people that were saying these like insane things. It blew my mind.
Right.
Can I add in something about say what happened? And I don't understand all of the details. I don't think it's ever been explained with Greenwald. Speaking of journalism, Greenwald with Snowden, and the fact that he's been, I think he's probably the most consistent. There are a few others that are similar journalists out there from either side, politics, where I mean. That guy is pretty amazing, in my opinion. That the stuff that he has put out there and his consistency under fire, where he's saying the same thing that he was back then, and I don't know, it's very interesting to me.
See, the fact that you had to say that, journalists from either side, that really is a contradiction.
Right? That seems weird.
And we're getting to the evolution that we were talking about earlier. When the internet came out, and you're talking about Drudge, and it was, I guess you would call it the alternative media then. But corporate media and the legacy news monster, they were kind of able to control that, take it over. But when it comes, now this is getting into crypto, when it comes to where we're at now, it's literally peer-to-peer. It's peer-to-peer news reporting and getting information.
Yeah.
And that's so hard for them to control, because it's, if you go to this guy, you can go, he says, no, you can go to that guy.
Well,
you could bribe this guy, but when it's just one person, like if you can't do it, you just can't do it.
Yeah, but there's a huge danger, because right now, like say Tim Pool could be taken out, like what is it? Stephen Molyneux, I think that's the right pronunciation, right? He's gone. He just disappeared because YouTube banned him. That was his only way to get his info out, right? So YouTube has a huge handle on any of these supposedly peer-to-peer people. Now they can go to Library, they can go to BitChute, they can go to one of the other one of the other
Rumble,
decentralized platforms. But the problem is there aren't enough people there right now, and nobody's pushing people that way yet. And then you have somebody like Rogan, who, for all it looks like he's on the right path. I enjoy seeing people put out there, but at the same time, I do know that, like, say, when he had on Jack from Twitter, and Jack's I don't know what her title was, he didn't do anything when they were saying stuff that was obviously false. They were lying on that show, and it wasn't until he got the ridiculous pushback after it, saying, why did you not freaking talk to them about this, that I think he had him back on, but it was still, he didn't want to upset the Twitter world. And so it's like, how independent is he? I don't know. He has a huge audience, right? But that doesn't mean he's not controlled. He could still be controlled opposition, or at least he could just be, doing what he's doing now. And if I guarantee to you, if the heavy hand came down, they would, they're making a lot of money off of him, but money is not necessarily the most important thing.
On Joe, from what I understand, is when he agreed to go exclusive Spotify, something either he or somebody I was reading about, apparently he made damn sure that his contract was really freaking good.
But I just saw last night that they've removed 4 shows, and I don't know what they removed them for. I'm not looked into the detail, but I do know
about it.
That they have.
Oh, with that one doctor guy.
Yeah, so I'm like,
Did they remove the Malone show
from like YouTube and other stuff. I don't know
No, they've
If they
said that
removed him
they
from
had
there.
4 shows removed from Spotify. Now we have to
Huh.
verify it. I don't know, but I'm not a journalist, so I don't actually have to verify it. I can just say it. But it's something to at least look at, that there is some censorship there. And you know they could if they wanted to. They say, well,
But
we'll just pay you out your
but
contract.
what
and
happened
drop
when
it
they
anyway.
did that? It was just some doctor that Rogan talked to, and then when they did that, it became a sensation, and
Right.
everybody went wherever they could to watch those clips and to see that. Then
Right, their hands are
regular
tied.
people with like 1,000 subscribers and 800 subscribers, they were uploading clips of the interview, so
Right.
it literally totally backfired.
Oh, they totally could do it,
almost always
right?
does. I feel like, well,
Yeah.
the ones
But
we know
doing
about.
it would be too visible.
Yeah, but usually though, all they anything that happens like that, if you want to suppress information, we've seen it in our lifetimes that it isn't an absolute heavy hand coming down, because that doesn't work. That Streisand effect, and it explodes. So what they do is they just they slowly discredit someone, or they start right now they're already trying on all the regular media to discredit Joe Rogan. They're trying to make him like he's a crazy person taking horse medicine, right? And so you think about that, and you realize how they can easily
Then it's stuff,
So-
but then it's exposed like the CNN picture.
Yeah.
You know how it's like he's gray in one, it
Oh,
looks like he's
right.
gonna die, and
Well, that's
Yeah.
that's standard practice, though. They do that with
Yeah, but
everybody. They did it
but
with
that's
Trump.
like
They did it
but
with
that's
Obama.
Yeah.
that's what's changed is now, and I think this is it's not journalism. It's my opinion on the whole insanity of the world. But I think that like the snake is starting to eat itself.
Yep.
Things are
No.
getting so
Well,
Well, it's just
extreme.
becoming tabloid.
Yeah,
Because
it's
it's as simple as
entertainment, and I think as soon as people realize that it's a kabuki theater, that it's not entertaining anymore.
No, but I'm talking about the policing someone by like canceling or whatever. Like people aren't that scared anymore; they're fighting back.
Yeah.
And Rogan really kind of is leading that charge. Every little thing that someone says to discredit them or do whatever, no, people are just like fuck you.
I'm actually
like,
okay.
But I
you're
will tell
kind
you,
of a racist.
there's a
It's
huge.
like, no, your mom's a racist.
I'm going to tell you though, there's
People
a
aren't
huge.
backing down that much anymore.
You watch what happened in Twitter in the last election cycle, and you had tons and tons of smaller accounts banned. They had no one to represent them. They had no audience to go somewhere and say they banned me, and they would get their way back. You would always have and this was on, let's say, the Trump side. They would get banned, and the bigger names could find their way back. The bigger names could find their way to a different audience because they have a big name already, and therefore you're talking fewer people you have to control. If
Right.
those are controlled opposition, it's really easy to say, well, we'll ban all of the smaller ones, and then the bigger ones come back over here, but they're under contract.
Right. We'll controversialize them and make it so that the algorithm suppresses everything that they say.
Yeah.
And so what you end up with is, sure, you got free speech, but your free speech is only as good as this hole into the ground that we're permitting you to shout into.
And that's
as if
it's
a
so
void
odd.
with
Robert
no
Beatles.
people in it.
I don't know if y'all know Robert Beatles. Used to be
I
Crypto Beatles. One of the biggest. He's a huge entrepreneur. Major construction companies. He still won't tell me, but he says he has products in every 7-Eleven. I don't know what they are, and it bugs me. But he's has a huge following on Twitter. He had commercials constantly back in like 18, like every other video you'd see. Come check out my channel, which is all about education and crypto and da da da. And then he started to move away from that and start talking about sensitive stuff, freedom, all this kind of stuff, and they shut him down. So he has, like, I don't know, 50,000, whatever on Twitter. And literally, I'm the only one that sees his stuff. I'm the only one that likes it. And he's like, it's obvious. So he started a whole nother social media, Red Pill, or pill.com. He's done so much, but it's so obvious. And he was one of those, small, in crypto, he was massive. But now, if compared to everyone else, it was a small influencer. But it's so blatant, that he's controlled and put into a hole. Never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Well-
They shut down his YouTube channel. They killed that. But on the other social media, they just kind of put him in a hole.
Sean, I
Well,
got
I will
something
tell
I
you,
want to throw at you.
we had a lot on that particular thing. If you don't mind, we had constantly. I have people that say, "Why do you guys talk about liberty? Why do you guys talk about this or that? You guys are racist because you're talking about the Chinese Communist Party. You guys are, whatever." And these are crypto people. And they're here for the money or whatever. And I'm telling you that stuff doesn't mean anything if you don't have the basis of why the technology exists.
Yeah.
The basis, no matter if you apply it to something like journalism, where it's more directly obvious that it's liberty based, or even a business. The fact that a business can do something that might or might not be what the government or the banks want is important, and it's you have to include it. And yet, we shoot ourselves in the foot with these people that are like that. And, I've had to just ignore them because but it's consistent. Anyway, sorry.
Speaking of that and censorship, I learned something last night at like 3 a.m. that was so funny and weird. So, you know how Hollywood is owned by Chinese Communist Party? They change movies.
Yeah.
Like I knew about stuff, right? They on Black Panther, they didn't want them to know that they were black. So his mask never came off. I don't know why I could forget mask. So on the poster and everything, they wouldn't, there wasn't any. His mask was always on, so it wouldn't promote, a black person. But so Fight Club, have you heard about it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, they're gonna die. So the end of Fight Club, they rewrote.
Oh, really?
I swear this is real. So Norton turns to Bonham Carter, and he's like, "You've met me at a very weird time in my life." And then the explosion happens, but they stop it right at the bright flash. And it's like a thing comes up on the screen. It goes, the police were able to figure out Tyler Durden's complete plan and stop all the explosives. He was then arrested, but taken and put in an asylum where he got the help that he needed, and he was released in 2012.
It was just a script narrative, like words.
Yes, and is a good member of society now. I swear that is. I was like, no.
Wow.
Yep.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yep.
Yeah.
You gotta find that clip,
yeah,
man. It's so funny.
Man. Yeah, I don't know. Hollywood is that's a totally different subject.
But that's like that's censorship on such a huge scale. And then like Top
But it's
Gun,
all the same. Yeah. Oh yeah. Those patches.
Yeah, it's not like
they removed the flags from Taiwan
Chinese
and
people
Japan.
don't know
They
it either,
take out
right?
Japan's flag.
Yeah, Dune. They took someone off the posters.
That
The
isn't
most recent
exclusive
one.
to the CCP, though. I mean, Germany does that with Nazi-era memorabilia or like video games, right?
Right.
Big example is that every game studio has to release a Germany version. It's completely, you've gone through the asset files and you've removed artwork that
Even killing
is,
Nazis?
You do all the same things. There's specific laws about, like, you can't display a swastika in Germany without being questioned by the police, usually. Like, it's just not something you're allowed to do.
Yeah, do you remember I had an Iron Cross on my jacket? And people will get really pissed off, man. Because it's like, there's like this little difference between that one and like the one that the British used.
Oh,
like,
right.
Yeah, just this little, and people will be like, "Hey, you're Nazi." Like, no, man.
It's like that. It's a sensitive subject,
Well,
yeah,
and
for good reason.
I remember there was
crazy
a
thing, though, to
I think it
me
was
is-
Lego or someone put out a toy that had I think there was Nazi stuff, but like it was this huge thing, man. They had to pull it off all the shelves, and they were like, no, it's weird, but the way they embrace the history is also weird,
right.
because they're
To
like
me-
all about accepting it, learning from it, not
forgetting
trying to
about
hide
it.
it at all.
Right. To me, it seems like not displaying it, not having those things out there to start conversations, goes against that kind of idea of, wanting to confront that history, right? Like,
No, because it's very clear that you will not make any damn money from this. So anyone who puts out anything in a movie, a game, a toy, it's like, no. This is
If you want to
just
sell here, you're going to have to do it this way. That
so
kind of
only the
just
government's
for
allowed
active.
to make money off of publicizing Nazi stuff.
Yes, the government's the only one allowed to make money off it. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
what I was gonna throw at Sean can probably be rolled into the first question though, because it's pretty related. So
Yeah, you
I'll
guys
hold
want to
that.
go ahead and start? We'll refresh here, and we go to question or topic number 1, which is from what? Angel Breaker. How can the immutability of blockchain enhance journalism?
Can I start off here?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say a minute ago that I'm curious how you feel about this, Sean. I'm not as I tolerate cancel culture. I don't have as big of a problem with that as I have with the reasoning behind canceling something. And this is where I get into like why I'm so apeshit about blockchain technology, which is that like since I was a kid, my grandfather taught me, when I complained one time that a bottle of Coca-Cola cost an extra 15 cents or something one day at the store, he was like, well, you know how you can get them to lower the price? Stop buying it. Basically he was saying, economically vote with your wallet, that kind of thing. So that's how I view cancel culture, but maybe that's a wrong view and there's more malicious stuff that I'm not participating in, so I don't get it. But what bothers me, here's the rest of it though.
Yeah.
What bothers me is, regardless of camps, and this is what I was going to say about camps too, is like, okay, there's camps. Camps exist, humans exist, all this information exists, the world's here. The idea, and maybe this is such a new concept, but the idea that you don't have to trust a person or an individual for information is probably one of the most important implications of blockchain and journalism. Because if you're going to cancel somebody, if you're going to, collectively, culturally say we don't support this as a group, at least have objective data and not have like, oh, so-and-so who I fully trust for whatever reason because they were on TV or because they're a personality that I've listened to for years. It's like the regurgitation of what, talking about news becoming more tabloidy kind of thing of how you should feel about something, and that leading to actual, action that's been directed at that point by someone else, instead of thinking, oh, you know what, there's a way, it's possible to measure the likelihood of a piece of data being true. And now if I want to cancel somebody based on that, I personally, I'm more fine with, okay, well, you got information that's more trustless than some Yahoo, so okay, maybe there's more there.
I feel like there's a difference
If that
between
makes sense.
disagreeing with a viewpoint and making things verboten to say, though, right? Like if you disagree with somebody as a community and an idea as a perspective as a community, right? Like, okay, everybody voice that, everybody shout that down, everybody say we disagree. Here's why I feel that way. This is a wrong perspective from my point of view. And if you persist in this, I'm not going to like you very much. But it's a big difference between that and going after somebody's livelihood because they started the conversation, right? Like,
And even more than that,
I think it's much worse than that. And this is
one real quick thing, and then I'll stop.
Okay.
Is when we're very binary, right? We're very true, false, black, white, no gradients. Someone who believes they're right is not going to listen to your argument, first of all. But
that doesn't matter, right? The difference is, and it might not be their livelihood. The difference is that
but people are objectively arguing points that are untrue. Like
no, people aren't arguing. Here's the thing. It's changed the way people think. It's changed the way people live. People live in fear. I don't think anyone should be living in fear. And
right.
Here's the thing. You're a piece of shit. All of you are pieces of shit. Whenever I talk about you to anyone else, I have to tell them what wonderful people you are. How you guys, the three of you, are some of my favorite people. but all of you have been pieces of shit at one time in your life.
Yeah.
Whatever it was the worst day. You were just, I mean, there's so many things that were affecting you that you did something that was bad.
Human
You were an
condition.
asshole to someone. You may have said something racist. I don't know. But it was at least one time 7 years ago, you were a dick and you took it out on someone and you were wrong. You may have apologized 20 minutes later. Like, man, I'm so sorry. This happened and that happened. And I'm hungover and I have the flu. And then I racked myself getting out of my car. And then you came up and it was just it was the worst timing, dude. I'm so sorry. But then someone can come back from, 5-6 years later and say, look what you did there. And then you're like, no, man, it was a terrible day. And I got racked and my balls hurt. And then this guy came up. He was bothering me. And it's like, no, you did this thing. We judge you on that. And now I'm going to talk to the people that I influence and control. And we will now crush you. And every one of those people that go and post and talk shit about you and try to, harm you, every single one of those people are probably worse pieces. I know they're worse pieces of shit than you three. You three are some of the nicest people and the best people I know. So, I you know what I mean? So I know that everyone that's going to come down on you,
I actually agree with that point there.
Person than you.
About that kind of thing specifically. I guess I was sorry. I guess I was more talking about like, when friends of mine, for example, who are now very anti Joe Rogan because they think somehow that he's like a right wing, like misinformation propagandist, right?
Because you're told
and that's like, where do you get this information? Like, it's one thing for you to be like, no, I'm going to dedicate my life to shitting on this person. But like, have you thought about where you're getting your information from and whether or not what you're saying sounds crazy in itself?
My cousin, like 2 days ago, told me that Joe Rogan shoved a dewormer up his butt that was for cattle and squirted it up his butt. And I'm like, no, he got a pill prescribed by a doctor. She's like, no, that's not ivermectin. We use it on the chickens. Like,
it's a chemical compound. It comes in lots of different forms.
I couldn't get through her. Like,
and it's actually such a benign substance that it helps a lot of different mammals. But
where do you start the conversation if you can't have some sort of factual basis to begin?
For this
here
question,
also, what I was talking about,
we should let Joe go. We've interrupted him like 4 times.
Yes,
but just at one point, because this happened last night. This woman that I know, she is batshit crazy, but all men are terrible. And she posted this, so she thinks this is completely okay to do. She was on a dating site, messaged this guy, and he said he was an asshole. He said, "Man, you have really terrible skin, and you've let yourself go." That's the message he sent.
Yikes.
So she sent batshit crazy stuff afterwards. Blah, 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 blah. Then he had in his profile that, I work for the city and I'm, blah, blah. So she writes a letter, sends screenshots of everything, including her batshit crazy stuff, to his work. And look who you have working for you. And then she posted all this. That, the email she sent, all this stuff, like it's okay, like it's normal for someone to say, man, you look like crap. And then you go to try to get them fired. And that to her is acceptable and cool. That's fine. And that to me is like, that's what people think that's so. Some people think that's okay.
Can I say though, this question is about the immutability in journalism, which is not about social media, by the way. It crosses a little bit, but you need to separate those two things where journalism would be history. So the obvious bit of it is that if
thank you for keeping us on task.
I think
if you have immutability in history, you wouldn't have some of the problems we actually know about and or don't know about what actually happened.
That was going to be my comment,
right?
That was going to actually be my comment.
It is the most important thing to the world for history reasons that exists now.
Also to change, the narrative of a story.
Yet not a single fucking outlet is actually using this technology at large anywhere officially, right? We're trying the best we can with archival stuff to track Twitter stuff. Dragonchain. We took a lot of heat. We captured on blockchain all of the Q posts. Why? We knew they were going to get deleted. I think there's only one outlet that still has them now, right? Publicly, posted,
Right.
available, right? So that's important for history. Now, social media, they're a good and bad. I think you need some angle of the ability to remove it. That Dragonchain Den has the ability to, and we've actually, I think, twice or three times had to follow generally the GDPR requirements in Europe that someone please remove everything. So we do it. We can prove that we do it. The the proof section is still on chain, but the data is gone forever, right? We can't point to who it is or what it was, which accounts for, oh, I said something stupid in the past when I was a teenager. Please get rid of this. That you can do that.
This is their right to be forgotten thing,
right? Which is a valuable thing, especially for individuals who I'm not a public official. If I'm a public official, I don't care if I say something stupid. It should be saved. It should be saved and archived forever, in my opinion, if I'm paid by taxpayers anywhere in the world, right? But the interesting thing is, for me, having that social media stuff up there, if somebody called me a racist, like they have on Twitter, when I would call out what the Chinese have done to certain minorities there, or in Hong Kong, right? I was called out constantly in private chat as a racist. It's like, I don't have any issues with Chinese people. I have issues with their government that's doing X, right?
If anything, you care more about the Chinese people than anybody else is letting on.
If someone sent that into my employer, right, and Dragonchain came, hey Joe, you can't be a racist. I would say, look, this is on chain. I would be able to prove what I said. That's powerful for an individual as well. If I'm not saying something that is outrageous, and then beyond that, in my opinion, and this is a big history piece, that I disagree heavily with what the rules are in certain parts of Europe, where they can't discuss certain things about the past. They can't say certain things. They can't do certain things, or
you can't use certain words.
Yeah, that's bad in my opinion, because it's actually, it weakens anything that is there that would cause the future generations to know this is wrong, this is right, and with this, you wouldn't be able to suppress that. I mean, the what you see in Orwell's writings wouldn't be doable with blockchain, because anybody could go back and look. It's like, wait a minute, that's not what this said.
And right? I bring this up all the time. That Roger Ver just said this to me casually, and you did the same thing to me too. It's like this casual comment that's like, whoa. And he said that true history never existed until the creation of blockchain.
Right.
It could always be.
It's just a different level.
Even then, there's a selection bias in what gets stored. Right. There's some pieces of it that will not ever get captured, like the mood you were in, or the things the morning you had before you.
Can I tell you
those types of things?
That was the goal for Dragonchain, to make it so ubiquitous, so cheap to do, that you would store anything. Like if you're a business, store any user action. You don't necessarily store every log on your system, but anything where a person does something or the system decides something should be on chain, right? On Ethereum, that wouldn't be doable, right?
Not yet.
And that was our goal. Well, probably ever. I mean, that's not its goal. Its goal is not to store the world of history.
Well, I mean, layer 2 as Ethereum as well, right? Like you guys commit back to Ethereum, so technically Ethereum helps.
Yeah, but Ethereum itself cannot do that.
Right.
Oh
yeah,
if you add a layer 2 to it, then Ethereum could do a lot of other things that the dogmatic Ethereum people would teach you for doing it, unless it's blessed by certain people in Ethereum. But either way,
which is a shame, which is a damn shame. But the other point that I want to get to on this question, guys, before we move on, is the economic aspect of it, right? Like, I don't know if you guys read Zero Hedge, it's one of my favorite sites. When they went to a premium subscription model, that was in part because Google would not let them play Google ads or be listed if they had certain information publicly available. So a lot of their sites had to go behind a paywall, or a lot of their stories had to go behind a paywall. And in order for them to maintain any kind of integrity and keep those things around without actively censoring regular comments and regular interactions with the site, they had to move to that model because otherwise they were going to be demonetized and pulled down from search. And so this didn't come from just Google. This came from pressure from advertisers, right? These types of economic implications where you don't pressure Parler to change. You pressure AWS to deplatform them, or you pressure their advertisers to boycott them. These types of economic incentives can be circumvented on blockchains because we don't have to live under the hegemony of ad oligarchy, right? Yeah. Like that is a big part of it. Yeah. Is that individuals can be economically independent in a way they can't be in traditional forms of the old school internet ideal, the web.
Can I ask you guys something real quick? Someone posted this on 4chan once. There's a single line post. I didn't even screen cap it or anything else, but it was an interesting point. I'm like, I think that might be true. That anyway, it's very, very absolute, but and it might not be that absolute. But has there ever been any topic that has been censored or suppressed that was untrue? Is there any reason, basically, to suppress, as a government or any control and power, the bankers, where I control the world? Is there any reason to suppress an untruth?
Well, I mean, what is absolutely untrue ever? It's usually a mix of truth and perspective.
Yeah, but that's not the point.
Assume that there is absolutes.
Assume there's, it's like flat Earth. Why is flat Earth out there? It's not suppressed, right? Because it's untrue.
Doesn't have to be.
Nobody, right? It's likely actually pushed by people, right? So,
you ever tried to argue with a flat earther?
No, never.
I have. I was on a show, and I said, you know what? Nothing anyone says is going to change you guys' mind. I said, unless you go up into space and see it, you're never going to, it doesn't matter.
So Sean, you disagree with it. Or that the window was
an LED screen.
If you had
I said this, I said, listen, everyone here likes me. Everyone here trusts me. Everyone's like, yeah, absolutely. I said, if this is a couple of years ago. I said, so if Branson or Musk or whoever, they get it to where we could go to space and they have like a lottery and I win. And I go up into space and I come back and I'm like, dude, it is round. I'm telling you, it's 100% round. I saw it. Every single one of you is going to be like, I think they got to him.
Right.
And I looked at all of them were like, yeah. That's exactly what I would think. I said, yeah.
Well,
I said, so maybe
it really a debate, maybe it has more to do with the social aspect of believing the lie together, right? Like, maybe they do know deep down that they're fucking wrong. And the point is, if I don't maintain this belief, I lose my friend group.
Also, I think that there's so much that is not true. There's so many things that Epstein didn't kill himself. The power of every meme that people post it's saying that they know so much is true. There's so many conspiracies. So much crap is real to have made that statement, to say that I know that. And you're not, those people would never say any of those other things. But by them, they can say that. So I think when it comes to I can believe this, I can fight for this, because I don't have to argue all the other stuff. It's kind of like their way to cope with the fact that they know all the other shit that's going on and they don't want to try to talk about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Well, it's the same reason why have they tried to ban Pepe? So many places, I think, memes also, I think in the UK, they were trying to, I don't know if they...
in federal prison over a internet meme joke about electronic voting right now. Guy from Florida.
Or the learn to code. Remember that? When journalists were losing their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
No, they were so angry about it that they wanted to make it against the law to say.
So the NPC meme. If you posted an NPC meme for a certain period on Twitter, in fact, I suppressed myself. I put one up because it was hilarious, where I made a meme and I changed some stuff. It was hilarious, but I pulled it because I'm like, you know what? I don't want to get banned over that. It's stupid. It was like, why'd I do that? You know,
and that sucks. That sucks.
Yeah.
The idea that we have to, and to me, this is the worst part about cancel culture. It's not that some of the things that get canceled are bad, right? Some of them are genuinely terrible and ought to go, right? Like people ought not to say that shit. It sucks. It's brutal. It's cruel. It doesn't take into account other people's perspectives and worldviews in a way that's, potentially even psychologically harmful to some folks, right? That sucks. But the alternative to letting that be there is, sort of this environment where you have to guess what might get you canceled as the march for ideological purity goes on, right? Because you cancel one thing, it's a slippery slope.
And that fear for
Can
journalists.
you
is that they
imagine
may
where we would be
lose their
right now
income, right?
today? Where we'd be right now today if what the hell is his name? Turn the Frogs Gay. What is it?
What is it?
Oh,
Turn the Frogs
tinfoil hat guy.
Yeah.
Turn the
Why did
frogs
we forget
gay.
his name?
What's his name? He's
Oh,
obvious person.
Jones.
We all didn't
Alex-
forget.
yes.
Alex Jones.
They're Alex Jones. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you imagine where we'd be today if when they tried to first take him off, everybody rose up and was like, "Oh my God, censorship! No, we'll destroy all of you." Whoa. If we stop that, can you imagine where we'd be today?
Oh yeah.
Check
We'd
this
have
out,
no
Sean.
power at all.
Check this
They're
out,
like,
man.
well, we tried that and it didn't work too well. We won't try to do that again.
So
we let it go, man, and then everyone just bing, bing, bing.
Sean, you're a blockchain guy. You understand the implications of measurable truth and things like that. Your flat Earth friends, if they went to space and they came back and say there was a reporter that was reporting on flat Earth events, a journalist published something, and there was verifiable data in the way that you understood it to be, objectively true, and it came back and it was like, oh, dude, actually, space is kind of a myth. Like it's there, but it's not what we think it is, and they are lying to us, and they told you that, right? Totally flip the script. Would you? What would you do? You know what I mean? Like, what I'm asking is this blockchain thing powerful enough to break your strongest convictions, which is that the Earth is frickin' round? You know what I mean? Or is the same line there for you as it is for them? I hope I didn't get too
no.
crazy.
I'd like to say, okay. I would like to say, okay, I'm on board. I mean, I've seen enough, movies. The Matrix. Like, come on. Yeah. Well,
finally saw it, by
man.
the way. Yeah.
So I don't know. I would like to think that I was. I've completely gave Flat Earth a run. I mean, I listened to everything. I would look, and I was like, that does make sense. That does make sense. And then the person would say, oh, well, that doesn't make sense. And I was like, yeah, you're right. That doesn't make sense. Okay. How come a plane over here going against the turn of the Earth doesn't get here faster? Because it's going to this country, and it's coming here. So the Earth is moving, and so this it should reach faster. I'm like, that makes sense, man. And then, someone explains why it doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, yeah, I can see that. Okay, science, I didn't know that. So, but I was open, man. I mean, I listened to everything, and there's some intelligent.
It's good to be open-minded, and that's the thing. If stuff gets suppressed, it's hard to get. I have to go to 4chan to get some truth that's out there now, and the problem is there's so much that isn't true there. I mean, there's a lot of nation state bots and everything else in there, but it's at least able to give me news earlier than anywhere else, and it's at least able to give me things that people will say nowhere else on any outlet on the internet. That they're, obviously that people will say stuff there that you want to hear, don't want to hear. But
I think there's
unvetted information.
And critical thinking is really, massively suppressed. At an early age, they're trying to,
oh yeah,
school kids.
Oh my God, schools.
So, but it's that we still have that, especially us. Like you said, why did you post that? It's because someone coaches like, hey man, can you put that away? Please, would you? I don't want you doing that here. I'm like, okay. And then right before you do it, they're like, yeah, you can't do that. Ugh, well, now I can't do it. You told me I can't do it. Now why?
You asked me to put it away nicely.
Yeah, it's like you asked me to put it away.
You said I can't do something.
I was just about to, but now you're telling me I can't. Why can't I? I just want an answer of why I can't.
Well, that's what I was saying to Greg a minute ago, was just that like the fear of a journalist losing their job, losing their source of income, their ability to feed their kids, that kind of thing, will censor people and what they're willing to say. And what's that? Go ahead.
Yeah, keep going, but I
Okay.
have something to add to
Yeah.
that.
I lost it actually, so
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Well,
Okay, I
I'll
remember
know where
in
you're
like
going.
15
The
seconds.
issue, it's like that. Yeah, that's great for them. That's one person, right? It sucks. I say it's not great. It sucks for them that they have to worry about their. But the issue isn't that. The issue is for everyone else who's supposed to be getting the product of their journalism, that the world suffers in a much greater way because they're not putting out. They're self-filtering. They're holding back some of what they know because they can't say it because they will get canceled. And that's the bad part.
So,
and I will tell you, when Trump got banned, I was like, I was talking to a friend here locally, and it is Seattle, so okay. But, I was like, why? What they were basically saying, oh yeah, it's great that he was banned. I'm like, why would you say that? It's kind of crazy. And it's like, I didn't like, what he said. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you don't have to follow the guy. You don't have to see the guy. You can block him. It's crazy to me that somehow you think that I should not be able to see what this person says. So why the hell would you think that some big organization should be able to ban this person from saying something I actually might want to hear, right?
I think that's an excellent point too, because I tell people, I have a lot of friends that I try to drive this point home to as well, because I do know a lot of people that love the fact that he was censored from Twitter. I don't like Trump, but what I tell them is like, look, if you genuinely believe that this guy is like a big idiot man-child that's embarrassing to the nation and and all of that stuff,
then go put that on every single one of his posts.
Well, no, wouldn't censoring him make it more likely that I would go vote for him because I don't know that? If I can see it, if it's out there, wouldn't I be able to know?
And I will tell you why.
That
goes right back to my point. We can go to the next question after this. That goes right back to my point on the suppression of untrue information. That if that wasn't the effect that was being had, if people were seeing that Trump was he is dumb, he would have never been banned. They would have left him there because it would have been detrimental to his movement. Absolutely. The only reason he was banned is because they saw that people liked it. They saw that he was willing to call out people, even if it was very caustic sometimes. But that's the reason he was banned.
He was elected in part because a big chunk of the population wanted to commit propaganda of the deed on the establishment, right? Like they wanted a guy up there who was a complete shit show because he wanted them to have to deal with it. You voted, a lot of people voted for Trump not because they liked him or thought he was a great guy or had great ideas, but that he was so different from all of those people and that he was ready to pick a fight that they wanted to just toss a freaking hornet's nest into their cocktail party.
I think the greatest campaign advertisement in history was the Michael Moore speech backed with the Time Zimmer music, where Michael Moore made the case to people who disagreed with Trump as to why the other people don't. And it was literally the human Molotov cocktail is what he described him as. And that's absolutely, because that's what I was looking for forever. I thought Rand Paul, okay, he wasn't going to make it. So I donated money to McAfee, right? Because that's what he would have been. He would have been the guy, if he were able to make it, to destroy all of the stupidity that's going on there. And Trump was that. So anyway,
well, the question to me is,
what I was going to say.
It's a hilarious joke. I just got it. I wanted to say something before we go on to what Dave said about them, their livelihood and stuff. This is a really big. I was excited about this topic because I think of journalists as like the modern day superheroes. More than police, more than soldiers, more than whoever you want to say, because in the founding of this country, they were given so much power because they're the truth, they're the guardians of the truth, and that's what's been attacked for years. I don't think there are journalists anymore. People worry about their income. That's not a journalist to me. They're like,
Yeah.
no,
I don't know.
I'll
I
go
would
to
say
jail.
Greenwald is. I would actually say Snowden was. I would say
Okay, yeah, but they're
Greenwald was. Still is.
Well, this is where I
Assange
was gonna,
was.
and I think this is
But
probably a good segue
overall,
to move
they're
on
just
to the next
actors
question
now.
too.
They're
You think,
actors.
maybe, yeah.
Like Luke Radowski from We Are Change. He said he went to some maybe it was Bilderberg or somewhere, but he goes there, and a lot of the the journalists like, oh, you're a real journalist. Oh yeah, I saw this, I saw that. Saw that you did this. Like, you're not a journalist. Oh no, we're actors. We took acting. They're just made, and you can make the argument that was with television, the invention of television and people seeing that, but I think the journalist.
I don't know.
As a
Even the
profession,
time period before Yellow
Superman.
journalism happened.
Superman wasn't a cop. Superman wasn't a firefighter.
Right.
Superman wasn't a politician.
He was
He was a
journalist.
journalist.
Right.
It was just it was
Journalism.
such
He
an
was.
important-
If you want to know the truth, he was an actor as well. He was. Remember this? He wasn't actually a journalist. He just happened to have that job.
Right.
Cover for
That's
his real
true.
job.
So just one last thought that I wanted to toss in here. The notion of self-censorship among journalists, right? And this is where I think I mean the economic argument builds itself, right? The idea that you can be independent of advertisers and be independent of a boss and still build a platform for yourself based on your reputation and what you get out there, right? That's the power of blockchain. But when you have self-censorship, it spreads across a party platform, right? It's cancel culture is a team sport. We could pick anything off the hard left plank right now, point to something in society, and try to talk about it, and you can guarantee that if you said those things, you get canceled, even if it's not something that's yet controversial, right? So that self-censorship is way more far-reaching than I think people realize. I think that's really the major destruction to journalism that's happened, and I think that's really where blockchain's
I agree with you a
capability
little bit on that.
I disagree on that, because if you're talking about, in fairness, the far left, they're insulated from it. The governor of Trudeau, blackface. The governor of Virginia, blackface, and dressed up as a Klan guy. That sounds like.
Yeah, they don't cancel. They don't get canceled. They're still there.
But they don't get canceled because it was a long time. It was a joke.
And that's one place blockchain
else
can't help, right? Like, because if
anyone
you
else,
don't
there would be
report it,
demand for that.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next question, because it's somewhat continuation of the same idea. Can blockchain? This is by Decent Crypto. Can blockchain prevent the spread of fake news? I can answer real quick. It can, because it can make fake news. The whole question of this, in my opinion, is you don't want censorship. That you might want to make some things, not in your face, but they're still there, so people can still get to them. And the fact that that's why Den is set up the way it is with layers, that every community can kind of have its own idea of what they want. The Overton window could be separate in each community, that we'll talk about something over here that maybe it's going to be a few years before that group would be willing to really talk about that. That's kind of the answer to it, and to make sure that the source and the information is provable after the fact, because you might come upon something that's 10 years old and you're like, oh, I can see that this really is what they said. It's not modified, right? And I can see the flow of people interacting with that information.
to me, I think we need to call out, like, there's some fact here behind the phrase fake news. You guys know where it came from, right? Firstdraftnews.org, a Eric Schmidt funded advocacy group, started using that word to describe anything that didn't fit within a social democratic perspective pre the Trump Hillary campaign era, right? This whole idea was promoted as a way to to shift the narrative in favor of a perspective presented as fact, right? And Donald Trump was really effective at throwing that back in their faces, such that they ultimately had to turn around and say, we should stop using this word or this phrase. But ultimately, this idea of fake news is embedded with the psychology that there are certain perspectives that we shouldn't be allowed or even want to hear because we can't handle the processing that will trick us into making poor decisions.
Yeah.
I think that ultimately belittles the human spirit and the human consciousness and capability for reason.
It's by the way, the same message that they use against crypto or innovation, that if you're not a VC who is a millionaire, you should not be able to invest in these things because you can't be trusted to use your own money in a way that, and by the way, we're not going to protect you any other way. We're just going to prevent you from doing these things.
You're too stupid. If you weren't so stupid, you'd already have the $250,000 or $300,000.
That law pisses me off so much.
Well, you imagine this. It is entirely plausible, and depending on the timing and history, it's entirely plausible that law could exist for the ingest of certain information. They could say, okay, you can't see Nazi propaganda unless you're a millionaire. I mean, that would be plausible for a government because it would be the exact same approach as what it is in the with an investment, right? That we're going to say, oh, because you're a journalist or because you went to an Ivy League school, you can talk about it, but these people over here can't talk about it. And it could be anything, right? That could be Trump. It could be whether any of the stuff that Assange has put out was true. It's like you think about the stuff that is in the WikiLeaks reports that came out about. Oh geez, I can't even remember the org, but military organizations that were doing some really crazy stuff in some of these emails. It's not even a discussion point. It's like it's very suppressed. I know I was a contractor. I can't remember if it was while I was at Lockheed or after Lockheed, but I was at the FBI, and we were literally told that we could not view WikiLeaks materials because it would be illegal for us to view them. It was the same thing as what CNN said. CNN said they remember there was a clip you can see on there. It's like, well, we can look at it, but it's illegal for you to look at it. It's like totally untrue.
We were told that too. I carried a TSSCI all through my Navy career with the stuff that I was doing, and it was the same shit. It was like when WikiLeaks started dropping classified information, we had a powwow about it, and it was like, look, we're telling you, you're not allowed to look at this. You do not have the need to know, and it could question. You could lose your security clearance if you find out about it, and so people were scared to do it.
And here's the thing:
need to know.
Sean's
That's
point.
a great way to phrase it.
All of that stuff happened, and it came out of the government. And CNN was pushing. I wonder why CNN was pushing the same narrative. But to Sean's point, this all was many years after the New York Times had specifically done the same thing. They'd put out information that was classified. It was absolutely classified, and they put it out. It would have been how do I say this? Except for the Constitution, it would have been illegal for them to do that. But because of the Constitution, nothing happened because, frankly, they were New York Times. I just assumed at the time it was because of the Constitution. It was really because they were the New York Times, because when WikiLeaks did it, he ends up with trumped up charges. Yeah, that whole history is crazy. What they did to suppress that. And anyway,
I was going to follow up with something that Greg said earlier that I had forgotten about that now I remember, but it relates to this, and it's about it's about blockchain. So cool. It is, you were talking about Glenn Greenwald, where it reminded me that I had to make a decision to start deciding who I trusted and which journalist I respected, their opinion, things like that. And I was driven to blogs and people's personal side projects more than the company they worked for. And so one of the maybe more practical things about blockchain, and this probably it's not gonna fix fake news, but it's going to help the situation. The ability for someone to monetize their own content in a way that's peer to peer is probably going to, it's not going to hurt, right? It's going to allow journalists with merit and with honor and with respect for the trade and their legacy to actually shine and be able to pay the bills and do it at the same time. Like if you do trust the New York Times, and there's a journalist there that you do trust, and you've been following them, and they leave because something happens, and like, oh, maybe the New York Times is not what I thought it was anymore. Well, that one journalist, if they either have someone helping them or can find tools that make it easy enough, they can use this blockchain technology to build a platform that is a peer-to-peer payment system. It doesn't go through PayPal or Visa. You know,
Right.
you don't get the situations like with Wikipedia where they're turning off avenues for people to donate to you to help you
Right.
fund your objective journalism, things like that. So
Right. It doesn't shut off your, if you have to leave
Just
the
the
place, it doesn't shut off your
practicality of
accounts.
using
You don't
it
have to
to-
set up a new account and go through all
Well,
the bullshit.
and I can tell
It's
you,
literally it just runs to you wherever you're making revenue.
So that'll add
point-
more information that is, and more than that, if you're able to adopt it in a way that you're able to publish stories that then use this blockchain technology to prove things, then
can I?
yeah, I don't think I finished that thought, but that's where I was going.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm with
sorry.
you.
So go ahead. Yeah.
No, can I tell you one thing? The effect that it has on even a small company like Dragonchain, right? That we've had bank accounts closed. I don't even know how many times, right? I couldn't tell you how many times we've had a bank. In fact, our whole strategy now is to always have at least 2 bank accounts, because at one point Chase Bank, it's like, oh yeah, Chase. Oh, we actually had Chase Bank, and they didn't complain about anything. They knew we were crypto, and then at one point, out of nowhere, 2 days notice, your bank's going to be, your account's going to, all of your accounts are going to be shut down, and we had to scramble. It was right before payroll. We had to scramble to pull out. I think we pulled out money orders to pay everyone, and had to find a different bank as fast as we could before the next payroll. And it was crazy. I even wanted to go in and say, hey, why don't we pull all this money out in cash? Because we had a sizable amount of US dollar in this bank, and we had to transfer it. And then the government comes like, why'd you do this? This is very unnatural. Why, what? And it was just ridiculous. It's like
It's
we got
sketchy
hit
that
from
you wanted
every
to
single
move your
side.
money because they were closing it down.
And it's obvious. It is obvious that all of that is on purpose. That
Oh,
at
yeah.
whatever high level.
Well,
So,
that's a really powerful point. Like the payment networks can actually deplatform people, right? Like if Visa decides that you are no longer a thing that they want associated with their payment
brand,
platform
yeah.
because of their brand, they can just shut you out. Like, and it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. There's this sort of, and I would say this is sort of kind of a fascist perspective that. If you are going against something that we disagree with, or if you're going against something that we agree with, the narrative that we're trying to sell, that you're damaging our brand in a way that we get to, without any recourse to any constitutional right or any human right, shut down, right?
Yeah.
And it ends up turning into a sort of a snowball effect where you get a kind of fascist state going.
yeah,
right?
well, I will tell you, in my opinion, it is ubiquitous. It is so permeated everything in life. It's money, right? That people don't even notice it. We are, if you ask me, and people are afraid so heavily of the effect of a social credit system like what has been proposed in and or exists already in communist China, that they are so worried about that, and that could happen here. It's already here. We are already slaves. If you don't toe the line and you don't do what you need to do, you can't.
Well,
borrow
there's
money for
states where
housing.
you
And
can't
that's
buy
where
food.
blockchain can liberate, right?
There's states where you
Because-
can't buy food and stuff if you don't toe the line.
Yeah.
If you don't have the card, if you haven't.
We're already there.
Yeah.
We're already
Yeah.
slaves. It's already plugged in, and it's everywhere. And it's just slightly different. It doesn't.
Well,
It
I
doesn't
wanted to
attach
talk
right now
about
to what you say
extra
online.
steps.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the question, and that was about fake news. First off, I want to say fake news does not exist. It's not a real thing, and that words matter. I want to say this, and I want people really start looking at this. about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years now, everyone started. It started in the media. I saw it. They stopped calling Democrats Democrats, and they call them Democratic. This is a
Right.
Democratic senator. This is a Democratic bill, and it matters because it's all Democratic. Everyone was democratically elected.
That's all
If you're a
Republican.
Republican, you're democratically elected, and that use of the word now, everyone uses it. I don't use it because I watched it happen. And go back and try to catch yourself when you talk about a democratic city. This is a democratic mayor. It's a
I
Democrat.
don't know. That was heavy in the 80s and 90s. I think now, though, most of the maybe the right wing media do say Democrat city, do say Democrat senator, do
Right.
say because I know
When
in
they're
the 80s
Democrat run,
they really.
It's a
but even
tribal
them, they
dogma,
say Democratic. But my point is that fake news is not a thing. It's a
I think
euphemism.
it's real.
Well,
I think it's real.
it's a
Well,
thing
hold
in the
on, I'm
sense that
talking
it's a
about word.
propaganda tool, right?
If
It's a way of
you
saying
okay,
conspiracy
if you're
theorists.
raped and you go into the police station, they're like, hey, what happened? Oh, I was raped. Well, hold on. Did he buy you dinner first? Well, yeah. Okay. And you weren't raped. You're date raped. It's the same thing. It's just
I don't think it's the same. I think
Well,
fake,
I
I think
think
what
fake
Trump
news
at least
is a
did
lie.
is
It's not
flipped.
It's a lie.
Flipped
They're
fake
lies.
news to be.
If somebody does a story and it is not true, it is a lie.
Yes, that's
It
not
is
fake
a
news.
lie.
I'm saying fake news. I think Trump, in fact, the reason that he was successful at flipping that narrative and flipping the use of that word is because he pointed it to what was manufactured corporate
right.
news. That
But
is
the
what fake news is now. If you ask
And
somebody
he
that
would
isn't
he would
the
try
idea itself, though.
to put it under umbrella, but I think that calling it fake news, it softens it. It's like, hey man, that story was a lie. Because I remember
I think
when like CBS or someone, they did a story that was like they just dropped half truths, and it was the biggest thing ever. They're like, oh, are you going? Is CBS News going to stop now, or ABC or whatever? Is this the end of it? Are you going to just stop reporting the news now because you've been caught?
I think
And it was this huge deal. But it all, and then Greg brought up Hillary Clinton. It all started with her lying and being allowed to say, I misspoke. What the hell is that?
right.
She
Well,
said
there's
that she was
that.
running from sniper fire and she was getting flowers from little girls. It is a blatant lie, but she was
Right.
allowed to say, I misspoke.
Well,
And I think that's what started it all. When you take a word and you change it to soften it, it's a euphemism,
with that.
and it doesn't mean the same thing. It doesn't have the same weight.
Yeah, well, and what I would consider fake news would be better called propaganda, right?
well,
So-
it is a term of conditioning, is what I would call it. Right. To say something is fake news is to say something is a certain class of untruth based on a narrative that was spun out intentionally to get you to think about news a certain way, right? It's a mind fuck about the way we think about news, and it's meant to cause us to shove out stories with contradictory facts so that we only listen to one perspective, right?
Can we try to get
And
to
that's
the
the
next
toxic nature of it.
See, Joe, what I'm talking about is that is a true fake news is like a propaganda story. A propaganda story, to me, is not as big a deal as a blatant lie, a false story that's completely made up. So by using the term fake news, it softens the terrible lie story and groups it in with it's just propaganda. It puts it under an umbrella of softening the bad stuff. You know what I
Well, it
mean?
makes it part of the team
Well,
sport.
depending.
lie.
Yeah. They built up a lot. They built up a huge narrative around fake news, planning to use it, and it was flipped. And so the fact that it's there is why it's stronger than it would have been had they not built it up.
Right.
So that's
Well,
the
but
reason it works.
it's a rhetorical football in
Yeah.
the game of tribal warfare that is the whole narrative around whether something is fake news or not.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Like,
go to the
and
next
that's
question.
the broken part to me.
Because this one I think is important to a couple of things that's already been brought up. Hyperion frequency. Can you give a quick overview of what freedom of speech actually is? Puts people what people believe it is. With blockchain in your pocket, how much safer do you believe getting information out into the world will be without it getting buried? How dangerous do you believe blockchain is to every citizen, the super wealthy all the way to the poor? Some of the things that I wanted to bring up in this is that, let's say what Roger Ver said before, that Sean brought up about the fact that it is real history, or in my opinion, it is history with proof. Whereas history is literally written word. Before there was language to be written down, there is no history. Prehistory literally is before it could be written down, and blockchain is just writing with proof. So it's writing with some way to measure that this really was what was said, or what the information is, if it's a video or something else, right? So extremely important for history. And yet, if you would talk to a Bitcoiner, right? And I'm a Bitcoiner, right? But if you would talk to someone who is a little more dogmatic, maximalist, tribal, whatever, history is really meaningless, right? Or mostly meaningless. The governments aren't using Bitcoin, so yeah, we have history of these transfers of value, and that's awesome. That is great, and it's valuable, but it's not really fucking history, right? It's not really Herodotus writing about a battle. It's somebody spent this money here on something, on some alpaca socks, right? It's like, that's not important. That's why we're doing what we're doing. That's why Din is there. That's why Eternal's there, because you need the real history to be on chain, right? And so those are huge things, and that doesn't solve the question of the question of getting the information out there. It just makes it available. It makes it available with the proof. So when someone finds it years later, let's say something happens that's historically significant, whether it was something that Trump said on Twitter that got captured on Eternal, the fact that it was written in a screenshot, you can't trust that screenshot, right? Anybody in the world in the next 100 years could fake that screenshot.
Or even a video now.
Right. If you video with this, at least you have the ability to capture whatever you can about the information itself. So you can have some QA in there to show, okay, this is proven because it's signed by a key that was known to be used by this person at that time in history. We can prove it, and they never complained that it was used before. We know this is therefore certainly what they said. And then we have the proof with Bitcoin that it's trillions of dollars worth of energy, because Bitcoin will still be around in 100 years. And that, now we can actually say this really happened, right? That's important. And the problem right now is not even that it's not getting it out there. The problem is that people aren't doing it. People need to start using DIN. People need to start using Eternal. People need to start
That's actually what I was going to chime in
blockchain.
with. The problem is that there's no one to do it but us. So people have to realize that. And it starts here now. And in 100 years, that'll be fantastic to have that done. But no one's doing it for us right now. It's us.
So I'd like to tackle.
It's us four, but it's us collectively, people.
And by the way, on the money side of it, you could see with an NFT that an older NFT, because there were some of the first ones are, even though they might not be quality art, are really valuable because historically significant. You can imagine what can you do to monetize that information that is on blockchain, and maybe it's the only place in the world that it was actually stored on blockchain, right? How much is that to be valued?
Yeah,
So-
I bought and sold a Mooncat for a profit. I don't care as much about the artwork itself, except that transaction in my history to prove that I was there. When this whole NFT thing blew up, I can be like, I was there. Look, I had a Mooncat. I don't care if I have it now, but I can prove that I was there, and I'm not just bullshitting you.
So I wanted to touch briefly on the definition of freedom, because I think this is an interesting one, or freedom of speech, right? I think it stems from self-ownership, right? The ultimate idea underlying any notion of human rights is that you have a unique dignity as a human being, and that dignity emerges from the fact that you own yourself. Nobody else can own you in any way that's rightful, right? And if you own yourself, then you own all of the ideas that you have as well. And being able to express those is the only way to make that ownership meaningful in any way. right? So the freedom to express and the freedom to think whatever you want and say it and prove those thoughts existed, give proof to their existence, is the nature of freedom of speech. And the cool thing about blockchain is it's intermediaryless, right? Like you can actually send signals to an endpoint, and nobody in the middle can moderate it if the system is designed to allow that. And this system in particular is based on the idea that, that nobody in the middle gets in the way of a transfer of value. And ideas, as we all know, are some of the most valuable things in the world when they're expressed properly and they drive change, right? So to me, that's freedom of speech. And yeah, it's damn dangerous to the powerful. They are terrified of a version of blockchain that doesn't either allow them to be intermediaries or allow them to to ultimately take control of consensus, essentially 51% attack the thing legitimately by taking it over, and implement something that allows them to edit history. Because if they can edit history, then they can censor anything. And that's really the power of this. Now, for the poor, it could be a great enabler if we build the societal structures around it to help them free themselves. If we do not, that's our failure. But blockchain itself can't solve that problem. So that's how I would say.
The only thing I want to say on like towards the end of this episode is that I would very much like to see more conversation. Well, I'll put it this way: less conversation about how to fix things and more conversations about how to improve things. Because I personally, I had to get over trying to fix things, definitively, because I kept beating my head against the wall, and it's you're not going to fix things. But if you have the capacity to improve anything, then that is honorable. Do that.
Right. But always do so with the mindset that human dignity is the core of this, right? And that you respecting people's right to own themselves and the things that they create and the things they produce is really the fundamental underlying idea.
I think Greg said something that is very profound. That I think we all think free speech is super important, but our country was founded on free speech in different forms. I mean, you can look at freedom of religion; it still falls to me a lot of it under free speech. Our country was founded on offensiveness. People came here because what they did, whether it's the way that they worshiped God or what they said or the way they dressed, they offended the powerful, the elite. And because they offended, it was offensive, so they came here. And our country was founded on being offensive to your neighbors, being offensive to your friends, and being allowed to be offensive. As long as you didn't encroach on their freedoms or you didn't try to force anything on people, try to harm them, then you could be offensive and people would respect your right to be offensive. And I think one of the biggest disservices, and all the free speech only can affect it, and only people need to fear it are the elite. Because if regular people, poor people, whatever you want to say, if they can accept you being offensive and it doesn't harm them, then that's real freedom. Where I think we've become a culture of, you can't offend me. That's one of the biggest disservices to humanity in general, because that is it limits everyone.
Right. Disregards the fundamental dignity of each human.
And it's so oppressive. I had a really good point, and now I'm losing my point. But you really blew my mind when you said that freedom of speech, it doesn't threaten regular people in any way, as long as they can just accept being offended, and words, sticks and stones break my bones, but words will never hurt me. If you can really live by that and just accept, that's offensive, dude. That's weird, but okay, you do you, and just don't do it in my house. Then the freedom that you really have is unbelievable, and the only people that need to fear that are people that try to control people. which would be the elite. And seeing the evolution of that, I remember as a kid, thinking Larry Flint was a gross piece of shit. George Carlin was, kind of funny. And, Sam Kinison was, fat guy screaming was funny. And how it changed when I got older. It's like, George Carlin's a freaking genius. Oh my God, Larry Flint it wasn't about, boobs and vaginas. It was about, free speech. It completely changed, my view as I got older.
Yeah, I hate the attacks on comedy too, man. It's such an important art form to break through.
That's something
mental
Rogan made a
barriers,
point about.
I guess.
How that changed. That's what accelerated stuff, because comics doing universities was, a big part of that coming of age where people could still, laugh at things.
With comedy, comedy, it has to be true. There has to be some amount of truth to it. It's not funny, and that's why memes work. That's why they want to ban memes in Europe. That's why Pepe is such a freaking frog, cartoon frog is such a threat to certain people, because it's so easy to get information through all of their barriers because it's funny. And people will just share it, and it's an immediate. I understand it. When you look at Epstein didn't kill himself meme, that it's obvious in one thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to think about it. You don't have to have any discussion. You don't need a wall of text. It's like, boom, look at this.
It's like, clearly that's not what happened. Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. So we need to close out. We're an hour and a half. So thanks everybody for watching. What's going on this week? Sean, let's just go backwards through.
Not much.
Okay. Okay. All right. Go watch Sean's show though.
Yeah, go watch me.
Greg.
Okay, so this week we are still pushing to get Cardinal across the line, and it is coming along well. We are into sort of those last few issues that always emerge right before you launch something big. So we're going to be able to start supporting some new chains very, very soon. That's Rivet. Now, for my message to everybody today is, your ideas have value and they're yours. Go out and express those and build things with them and create things with them, but acknowledge especially the ideas of other people and help lift them up too. Because most of the world doesn't do that. You can create a lot of change by encouraging other people to create as well. Obviously, if they want to build on one of the chains we support, ETH, ETC, any of the test nets, soon to expand, right? Rivet's here to help, but do it anyway, even if you don't build on Rivet, because that's how we make the future something different than what it is today. That's how the world gets better.
Yep. Dave.
Hey, yeah. So with Den Social, if you want to follow along while I'm onboarding a bunch of people who have no idea about blockchain and may even be against it, I'm doing that this weekend. I got a whole bunch of merch back there in those boxes, like probably 25 to 75 people somewhere in there will show up. It's super cold. I don't know. But we got a big party, and I'm doing like a meetup to talk to normal people about Den Social. I think one of our strategic edges is actually normal people. Interesting enough. So that's something that I'll report back with how it went on the next Coffee with Den every Wednesday at 9. So you can find out about what I'm doing there and how successful it is or isn't, and maybe throw some advice in too if you have ideas or questions about how you could maybe use the tools that we've developed for your community.
I'm actually trying to get a show where I'm going to interview the people running for governor in Texas. And I really want to hit, because recently, the past 2 weeks, our governor's done some scary things. He had a big fundraiser in California for $25,000 a plate as a fundraiser, so it's very odd. And he instituted some mandates, which were after that, which were not, there's no mandates whatsoever, and then all of a sudden things start getting approved. But there's a big kind of movement against him. DeSantis is super, super popular. People want to go kidnap him and bring him here and have him run the state. But actually some people that are running for governor, part of their platform is secession. So it's a very odd time here in Texas. I wanted to get them on the show and talk to them about but one of the big things that Abbott has done is massive strides for blockchain. Super big proponent of blockchain, super big proponent of crypto. So I never thought I would be torn. To me, if that's like my litmus thing. If any politician is like, I love blockchain, love crypto, it's like, all right, I'm behind you. So, but now with some things that he's doing, it's a little bit I'm torn.
Well,
So
it sounds like we got to get
hopefully
together with
that set up.
Greg, and we can figure out how to get Mega Texas down
Yes.
Yeah.
onto a DIN layer to organize that entire flow of efforts.
Yes. The United Counties of Mega Texas is a thing. And I thought that one of the counties should be the entire I-70 corridor.
I love it. All right. Very good. And for me, I'll tell you guys, Dragonchain's working on a bunch of stuff. A lot of interesting stuff happening behind the scenes still. Can't announce yet. And Din, watch the governance show this afternoon. We're going to go through some interesting pieces, and there's a lot of development happening. We actually have the front end, I believe, for almost completed. At least it's all approved for the site-wide governance. And once that rolls out, then stuff is going to get really interesting, because we're going to be able to change the entire algorithm or system, or add or prioritize things for one, entirely based upon decentralized governance. So
that's why that feature took priority, because with this, we can do so much more, way more efficiently.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's it. So make sure you share the episode, like it and subscribe and everything, but make sure you share it, because the more people that watch it, this episode, the first week, the more all the hosts and the topic contributors will get. Like, comment, subscribe, all those things.
Yep.
And I think that's it.
Oh, tag free Assange on this one.
Yes. Tag free Assange. Yes. Thank you. All right.
Thanks.
While nuclear weapons states can exert unlimited violence over even millions of individuals, strong cryptography means that a state, even by exercising unlimited violence, cannot violate the intent of individuals to keep secrets from them. Cryptography is the ultimate form of non-violent direct action.
What happens when 90% of the media is controlled or owned by 6 corporations? What happens when those same corporations are operated and controlled by a political ideology? What happens when the news is no longer free from bias? What happens when the news is no longer reliable and independent? What happens when the news is no longer trustworthy? Fact becomes fiction? Fiction becomes fact? When does news become propaganda?